Assalamu alaikum, kia ora, greetings, welcome to another Voice of Islam show. Today we'll be talking about the rules of fasting during Ramadan. Fasting in the month of Ramadan is well known to most people around the world. Why is it well known? Well, fasting has been the tradition of all the prophets of Allah, and during their time, their followers fasted as well. So we know every religion, culture has an understanding about fasting for physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. But when we talk about Islamic fasting in the month of Ramadan, we face certain rules for it. For example, I can't fast the way I want, or we cannot have a vote on it and change the rules of fasting. We may ask why is it and who made the rules for it? And why can't we change the rules for fasting as we want? The answer is that Allah has prescribed fasting and all the rules have come from Him. Allah gave the rules for the perfection in fasting, and as Muslims, with total submission to Allah, we follow the rules without asking any questions. Ramadan is upon us, so we must be prepared. Today we'll discuss a few rules of fasting. Inshallah, it will be beneficial for all of us and as a reminder for what we need to do to gain the most rewards and benefits. We appreciate you joining us, and we also request you share this video and links with others. We welcome Brother Freed Ahmed from Christchurch. He identifies himself as a Da'i, a caller of good and peace, and he is currently working on his latest book on fasting, which will be available soon. Due to his health, we ask all of you to remember him in your dua and prayers. Assalamualaikum, Brother Freed. How are you today?
Walaikum assalam rahmatullah, alhamdulillah, and through you also my salam to all the viewers, and I wish all of them well, inshallah.
Inshallah, likewise, and all the Muslims, we must be getting excited that Ramadan is coming. I know it's always a little bit tense to sort of think, oh, when's it going to start? Because here in New Zealand, we always go by the sighting of the moon, so we never know exactly when it is. Some of the brothers and that are going out tonight to watch for the moon, and we'll get notification whether it's tomorrow we start fasting, or if not, it'll be definitely on Friday, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So
So,
all those other Muslims, wherever they are, may Allah bless our fasts and accept our dua, our prayers, and make it easy for those who are suffering and having to do involuntary fasting most days because they might not have access to food and things like that all the time. And also let's just finish a little bit. For also our non-Muslims, maybe ask your Muslim friends, if you know some Muslims, or write to us and just ask us about the fasting. Because some of the places, some of the mosques might have be able to invite you to come along to one of the iftars, the breaking the fast, and then you can enjoy and feel part of it and eat some of the beautiful food,
yeah,
inshallah.
and for all of us, who are going to, sight the moon, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring the moon uh, above us with safety, security, good iman and peace, and also with the state of Islam. And may Allah make the month of Ramadan blessed for all of us.
Make it our best Ramadan ever for all of us, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. So, Brother Freed, let's get into it so we can learn some of the rules. So one of the first question is, so who must fast and who does not need to fast?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Brothers and sisters, so let us discuss about the rules. So the first question is that who must fast and who do not need to fast. So as we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed the prescription of fasting only for the believers. So Allah says in the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. So, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you. So, from that, we can clearly understand that Allah is prescribing the fasting for the Muslims, for the believers who have voluntarily, surrendered their will to Allah's order and who have taken Allah and all other necessary things into their heart, into their soul with deep faith, and they are willingly waiting for Allah to advise them, guide them what to do and what not to do. So for them, fasting is a must, it is prescribed. And for non Muslims, fasting is not compulsory on them until they are, happily uh, and willingly, without any force, if they want to believe in Allah and want to follow Allah's command, then that is the in a different case. But until then, fasting is not for them. So fasting is not for non-Muslims, and then among Muslims, um, for some people they must fast if they are completely able and healthy, strong, safe, not sick, etc. But for others, uh, there are facilities, flexibilities, and options. So let us start at first that who completely don't have to fast, and that is non-Muslims. But for Muslims who are not required to fast are number one, immature Muslims. Muslims who are not yet matured, children, very young. For them, fasting is not compulsory, but when they come to the age of maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, then to build up their habit, they can start for 1 hour, 2 hours, half an hour, or one full day, and then one break another day. That is for building up the habit, and also if they can fast for few hours, then the reward will go to their parents until they are matured. But as a law, they are not obligated to fast until they are matured. Then insane Muslims. So insanity comes under the sickness. So with insanity, people don't know what they're doing. People also, because they are not in control of what they're doing, they're not doing things willingly or knowingly. As a result, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a rule. Allah says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wusaha, that Allah does not put any responsibility on someone who doesn't have knowledge or ability or understanding to carry it out. So, insane people are in that category. So, for insane Muslims, until they are, sane, healthy, fasting is not an obligation on them. Then, sick Muslims. So, sick Muslims, there are two kinds of sickness. One kind of sickness is temporary. So, during the fasting month, if they are sick, then in those sick days, they are allowed to break fast. And then when they become better, then they should continue. And later on, after the fasting months, they should make up the missing days that they could not fast. Now, another sickness is permanent. So, permanent sickness, for example, too old or people in terminal sickness, that their sickness, the diagnosis and the prognosis is that they cannot survive, they cannot be cured, and they're going to die, and they are not in a condition that anyway fasting is possible or helpful for their health. They in this condition, that is called permanent sickness. So for permanent sickness also, people do not need to fast, and instead of fasting, they should feed the poor. So we will go into those rules later. Now, also, there are other kinds of sickness, particularly in women. So, for example, um, a menstruation, monthly period. This is also one kind of sickness, according to Allah's language. um, so it is other, it is sickness, it is also impurity. So in that state, they are not allowed to fast, they are allowed to break, and then again for them later on, when they will get the time and opportunity, they can make them up. Also, women with childbirth, so after childbirth, there is a period for blood loss, for bleeding. So in that time also they do not fast, and after uh, becoming better, then uh, they can uh, make up the missing days. So that's how it also extends to, women in pregnancy, their ability, their consideration of the baby's health, consideration of, mother's health, and also consideration of nursing mothers, the babies, all sorts of things also are considered, um, in fasting. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the rule very, very clear that faman kana minkum maridan aw ala safar fa'iddatun min ayamin ukhar. People who are sick, one way or another way, and people who are in tiring traveling, then for them they can break the fast, and they have to make it up later on. Then also, in this verse, we find that travelers are also included. Travelers, if the traveling is, scholar says, if traveling is not tiring, and with fastest aircrafts from here to there, then one doesn't need to break the fast. But the option is there, if the traveling is really tiring, then Allah doesn't want to make his believers suffer. Allah wants the fasting for the believers as a practice to gain taqwa, and also as a healing to their sinful mind, sinful soul, sinful hearts. So basically, what we find, that the Muslims who are able, then they have to fast continuously. Muslim who have difficulties and sickness, they can break, and they can make it up later on. But Muslims who are terminally ill, or who are uh, going through such a chronic illness that fasting will deteriorate their health, their well-being, then instead of fasting, they can give fidya to the poor. And also, other thing we have found out, that the fasting prescription from Allah is only for the believer who are willing to do hard work according to Allah's instruction, but it is not a compulsory thing at all on those who do not believe. So I'll stop here. Inshallah, looking forward to talk more.
Jazakallah, Brother Freed. I just want to make a couple little comments here as you were saying some of the things. I was just thinking of it. So sometimes, like I know some people say, it's very hard to fast in hot weather, cold weather, and things like that. And especially I talk to some non-Muslim friends say, "Oh no, I couldn't do that. It's too hard, it's too difficult." But Allah Subhanahu wa Taala just makes it easy because some people I know they sort of say, "Oh, I can't fast outside Ramadan," but when it comes to Ramadan, Allah just gives me that strength to make it easy and well, not easy, but easier. They can cope with it and things like that. So, you know, to sort of, for people to sort of say like, because sometimes we have like we're not in summer these days, but we're moving towards that. So you could get to summer where it's like nearly 18-hour days of fasting. It's hot and things like that. So but Allah gives you the strength. Allah gives you the ability to do that, because especially if your intention is there to do what we're required to do what He asks us to do. So He makes it from His side, makes it a little bit easier for us as well. It's not easy where you sort of think, oh well, it's too easy, but it's you've got to sometimes not sort of using the word suffer so much, but just have a little bit of a hardship so that then you can feel. Because if it was too easy, it's sort of like, well, they say easy come, easy go. So you want it a little bit so it's different, so that's you're going through a little bit of suffering, so that you can feel for those who are fasting a lot of the time, but also you're showing your love for Allah Subhanahu wa Taala by enduring that toughness and sort of, but it also makes us stronger, because when other things happen, because we can endure that, we've sort of got that, we've built up that resistance, that strength. Other thing, it builds us for other things we do in our life. So if other things come up, like we start to feel a little bit depressed or something like that, but because we're able to have that fasting ability, then we could cope with those things a lot easier. And I think this is something that we should also mention. Maybe talk a little bit more about the wisdom behind the fasting, and how it can help spirit, not just spiritually, mentally, physically, in all different ways. To get benefits from it, inshallah.
So I will add little. So fasting is not easy. That is for sure. Fasting is a very hard work. But with this hard work, also the assistance come from Allah.
Kamala, yeah.
So, in summary, Allah says in the Quran in a verse, Inna ma'al usri yusra. Definitely, Allah makes the hard work blessed with easiness. So, what happens? When we make the intention for fasting, then it becomes very difficult work for the physicality, because suddenly after whole year, now I'm not eating and my tummy is probably rumbling and gargling, screaming, give me food, why it is late. So yeah, and physically you will feel bit thirsty, you will feel bit tired. So how Allah makes it easier? What happens? Allah gives a sense of satisfaction and pleasure in our heart, in our mind, because we know that this fasting is not like the common hunger, but we believe that this fasting is for a pure purpose, for worshiping the Lord Almighty. And also we get all sorts of promises from Allah for all sorts of gains in this life and in next life. That's why this fasting is not like hunger, that we go through hungry. This fasting is voluntary and willingly, to increase our willpower, our decision making, to make us into the one to control, to be on the driving seat, things like this. So the motivation is good, The reason is good, the aim is good, and with that, Allah send a blessing, a peace of mind in our hearts. And that's why we feel happy about it. So when a mind and soul is feeling happy, even about a hunger, then it becomes enjoyable. So,
Okay.
for example, you know, a rugby, superstar is, running with maximum ability that you and I cannot. All right, we will feel, oh, it's hard, but behind that running of that rugby star, the mentality, the psychology, the philosophy of doing things is behind, is giving the power, giving the strength to continue the running. Our reasoning for fasting is more powerful than that motivation, and that's why really we feel a sense of peace and happiness that we are fasting for a greater reason, and to please our almighty Lord. And that happiness in mind and soul removes the physical pain.
Mm. Jazakallah, Brother Freed, for adding that little bit there. So, next question um, is so, what actions break the fast?
All right, so a lot of it, and the two mains are food and drink. So, for example, in chapter 2, verse 187, Allah says, Wakulu washrabu. So, Wakulu washrabu hatta yatabayyana lahumul khaytul abyadu min al khaytil aswadi min al fajr. Summa timu siyama ila layl. So, the siyam part is do not eat, do not drink, etc. And in this verse, Allah is saying that the fasting for you is at the daytime don't eat or drink, but nighttime you do. So the main thing that break our fast is if we eat food. That is number one. If we eat any kind of food, that we swallow it, and then it breaks our fast. What about injection? Some people they cannot swallow, so they need food injection. Or maybe sometimes in the hospital they are putting the food pipe or liquid food to go inside the stomach and to give the nutrients as food for our well-being. So if any kind of food, through it is injection or it is through food pipes, any kind of food will break the fast. And then drinking also, um, we need to swallow the drink. So drinking of any sort, halal drink, haram drink is haram all the time anyway.
Exactly.
But even halal drink, water, if we drink water, then the fast is broken. But these things we need to remember, that eating and drinking has to be willingly, uh, knowingly. If it is by mistake, then there is another rule. We'll come to that. So, drinking of any kind of drink, then any kind of intoxication, any kind of intoxication, or smoke like cigarette, um, drugs, any kind of things to stimulate oneself, any kind of intoxication also break the fast. Uh, I included the smoking. Smoking also break the fast. Sex, of any type, sex of any type, uh, breaks the fast. But for example, husband and wife, if they touch one another, that does not. Some people they misunderstand that during the fast, husband and wife should not even sit side by side or should not touch one another. No, the advice is that if you are still young, and if there is a chance that you can be uh, motivated for sex conduct, if you get too close, then the advice is that maintain some distance for precaution. But it does not make to touch one another haram. No, it doesn't. So, uh, sex breaks the fast, semen discharge, and that semen discharge even without sex. If anyway the semen is out, then it brings the impurity, and semen discharge of any sort breaks the fast. Menstruation. So, menstruation for female Muslims, either they, as long as they are menstruating, they, they must not fast, and later on in other month, they can complete or make up their missing days. Bleeding after childbirth, that also break the fast. And then vomiting, voluntary vomiting. So before we talked about voluntary eating or drinking, and this one is voluntary bringing things out from the tummy, also break the fast. Um, and then if anyone was in Islamic faith and he was fasting, and then he rejected the faith, then the fasting is broken because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed the fasting, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, on the believer, and we discussed it before, that Allah is so fair that Allah does not force faith on anyone. So for testing the human being, Allah has given us the freedom of choice. So if anyone freely accept Iman, then his or her fasting is valid. But if anyone voluntarily goes away from the Iman, then by that action also fasting breaks. Then there are difference of opinion in few other things. For example, blood giving, donating blood during the fasting day. So some scholar they say it is okay, and other scholar they say better not. So if we take on the safe side, then maybe better not. But this sort of things, I'm not the expert. You, if you have any query, any question, please um, get in touch with your mashayikh who are closer to you, the imams of the masjid. They can explain to you better. And then another one is also uh, with two opinions, using the toothpaste. Using the toothpaste, does it break the fast or doesn't it? Also, difference of opinion. Please check it with your nearest sheikh. And also cupping. So cupping is also a sort of in a bloodletting therapy. So some say okay, some say not. So, to get more understanding about those things, please check with your nearest sheikh. So, these are few things in brief we need to be careful about because those things break our fasts.
So, Brother Freed, the main takeaway from here is if unsure, talk to your spiritual leader.
Mm,
Or send, you could even send a message through to us, and we can contact some of the sheikhs that we have involved with Voice of Islam. But best to go to the spirit, the one in that you're close by and have you deal with mostly, because you probably can get an answer fairly quickly. It might take a bit of time coming through us,
mm,
and just understand the things. It's most of it's practical things. What does break and what doesn't break. I used to get told in the early days having a shower breaks your fast because your water goes inside your skin and things like this. And and someone said if you had a cut, well, it's all of a sudden your fast is broken, and all sorts of different things. So you just have to look at things from a practical point of view, and how Allah intends us to do things. He doesn't like to make things hard for us.
mm,
And if you look at other things, and then you can sort of see from what is the philosophy between that, and then you sort of can usually work out from things like to work out what is and what isn't. So, but if unsure, always go back to those who have knowledge. You could always, I'm not saying to use check Google, but sometimes if you've got a reliable online place that you can get information and it's reliable, then you can write to those sort of places, because they are those ones that have frequently asked questions. As long as it's reliable and things like that. As I said, I'm not saying that that's the only place to go to, because our scholars that we have close by there, we need to use them and utilize their expertise and knowledge that they've gained for many years, inshallah. So, Brother Freed, the next question. So, what actions doesn't break the fast? So, we talked about what actions break the fast. So, what
mm.
actions don't break the fast?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, so we start with one that, if we forget. So, just, for example, I'll start with this hadith mentioned in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Man nasiya wa huwa sa'imun فأكل أو شرب فليتم صومه. If anyone has forgotten and have eaten or have drunk something, then it does not break the fast. So that person, that believer, should continue the fast. So, if we forget something, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so kind that Allah does not take the reward away from us. If you have noticed, there is a particular dua Allah has taught us in Surah Al-Baqarah. Um, a particular dua, and that dua is Rabbana la tu'akhizna in nasina. So it is in the last verse in chapter 2. Uh, Rabbana la tu'akhizna, O Allah, do not hold us responsible in nasina, on the things that we have forgotten, aw akhta'ana, or we have mistaken. So Allah is teaching us. You can see how merciful Allah is, towards His believers. Allah
Brother
is
Fred,
saying,
can I
yes.
just ask on that point where you talked about
Mm,
forgetting that? So, say you're sitting down. It's maybe a little bit unbelievable to sort of think that it could happen. Sit down, you got a beautiful meal in front of you, and you start eating it, and you just realize it's Ramadan and you should be fasting, So do you stop right there, or do you
Yeah,
finish the meal?
you stop right there.
Stop right there. Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah, yes, yeah, we
Yeah,
stop right there.
and
So,
save it for later, inshallah.
yes,
Yes.
so here, it is in chapter 2, verse 200, um, yeah, 286. Yeah, so ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. uh, our Lord, forgive us if we forget or make mistakes on our part. So if we, forget something, um, and we have eaten, the fasting is still there. It is not broken. So this is one rule. Another one is tasting the food. So maybe you are cooking a meal, whether you are a chef, male chef, or cooking at home. You are chef sister, and to make sure you have proper salt, proper amount of chili. You want to taste it. So if you only without swallowing, if you just only put a little bit on the tip of the tongue and then spit it out, or wash your mouth without gargling, because if we gargle during the
Yes.
fasting, then mistakenly it can
Indeed.
find its way to go down.
Yes.
And we should not encourage that. So that's why during the fasting we do not gargle. We carefully wash our mouth to make sure the mouth is washed and we are not drinking anything. So testing food like that does not break the fast. And testing salt, the same thing, also does not break our fast. So another one is own saliva. When I was young, I was little. I saw many mistaken people in the villages. They used to fast and they used to continuously spit. Yeah, I said, why? This is because if we, swallow our saliva, then our fast will be broken. So this is wrong, because the saliva is part of our internal, internal part of our internal thing, and food is not internal. Food is something external from outside. We put in our mouth, chew it, or with this chewing, sometimes liquid, we swallow it. So saliva is our part of our internal body, internal organ. So saliva does not break the fast. Push nasal discharge. So some people have flu, cold, or sinusitis, and that is producing the mucus, and maybe sometimes they are not careful, and it is going through food pipe, going through the food pipe, backward instead of coming through the nose. So if that happens, it does not break the fast. Piece of cough, sometimes people are coughing and it is going in the wrong way, instead of coming out. If it happens also because it is part of the internal body, it does not break the fast. And then the dust from the storm. So these are the things are, I'm just giving brief. If I go through every hadith for every example, we cannot finish, only tiny part of it in 1 hour. So I'm just giving you the summary, summary of all things. The summary of hadith is summary of the observation of so many scholars. So dust from the storm, or windy weather. So you are outside, and then suddenly the weather is bad, and the dust has hit hard, and maybe part of it has gone into your food pipe. It does not break your fast. And also about injection. So we talked about injection to put the food uh, inside us. So when something goes to the food pipe, it into the intestine to you know uh, make sure that it is going to be helpful for you as a food, then that will break fast. But if it is an injection, for example, an injection in the muscle, then it does not break the fast, because that injection in the muscle is not going to be, it is not as food to supply the nutrient to you through gastrointestinal process. So injection in the muscle does not break the fast. Lots of Muslims, they have asthma. So when they have asthma is due to the a problem in the lungs, to and also it creates inflammation in the lungs. So to push the inflammation down, there is a things we all know called inhaler. So that inhaler goes to the windpipe, to the lungs. So that inhaler, it is not food, it is not targeted to give nutrition. So inhaler also does not break the fast. And then we talked about using the toothpaste in I said that it has opinion in a in favor and against. But what about miswak? Miswak is a kind of one kind of particular a plant, uh, and the small branch. It is very juicy inside, and it is very healthy for the gums and for the teeth. And that miswak we use. So what about doing miswak during the fast? Does it break the fast? No, it does not. Prophet Sallallahu used to do miswak regularly, and we know that Holy Prophet's habit was, he used to put his miswak here. So anytime he needed, it's just like a healthy, very healthy mouth freshener, very healthy mouth freshener, and it brings lots of rewards in our fast, in our salah, etc., etc. So check it out. Only just doing miswork in 30 seconds increases our reward in prayer about 70 times, if I remember correctly. So just miswork is very it's very a healthy thing. So that does not break the fast. And then like we said, that by forgetting if someone has eaten. So similarly, if someone is sleeping, and during the sleep, the person is out of control. So during the sleep, if there is semen discharge, then that also does not break the fast. But we said before that in a weak condition, willingly, uh, if any way the semen discharge take place, that will break fast. But during the sleep, this is happened unwillingly, so that does not break the fast. And then in a weak position, when people are not sleeping, sometimes uh, they can have pre-semen prostated fluid for the male. So that one does not break the fast. It does not break the fast. So we need to be aware of that. um, it requires cleaning, involuntary vomiting, a little bit of involuntary vomiting. Before we said voluntary vomiting breaks the fast. And here it is said that involuntary vomiting does not break the fast. If the weather is very hot, pouring water on head or on the body does not break the fast, because this water is not going through the
Skin.
food pipe to the intestine. So this water is, for cleaning the outside. That's why it does not break the fast. Wallahu alamu. And yeah, these are the few things I can think of now.
Yes, as you said, we can only cover a few of them. So you just look at, people just think of the, what the characteristics are, the lines of what is and what isn't, and then you can get an idea of just from that as where it's sort of lined up, and you can
Mm,
sort of
mm,
work out. Oh, it didn't we didn't specifically talk about this, but it's very close to that, so it should combine with that one as well. It's same with like when you take a wudu and you're washing your mouth out. In Ramadan you don't sort of really chuck plenty in your water in your mouth and tasting it and nearly, swallowing some of it, things like that. It's just trying to do things as normal as possible without going to extreme of different things. When showering, don't sort of hold your mouth open and sort of try and catch some and say, "Oops, I didn't mean it." But, some might go there, but if you're holding your mouth open too much, of course it's going to go there. So we just have to be sensible about these things, and Allah knows our intention anyway of what we're trying to do. So no matter what you do and things like that, if you're sincere, Allah knows that, and if you're not, Allah knows that as well. So we get the rewards, we get the punishment based on our intentions and our actions, inshallah. So next question, Brother Freed. So what is qada, kafara, and fidya? So I hope I've pronounced those right.
yes, you are okay. Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Bismillah.
So these are few terms. These are few terms. Um, if someone could not fast, if someone could not fast, you know, uh, he or she had full intention to fast, uh, was ready to fast, but because of some sort of sickness problem, etc., etc., could not fast. So qada kafara fidya is like the remedy, like the compensation. So how can we compensate? And there are three ways we can compensate, and you have mentioned them: qada, kafara, and fidya. So let us start with qada. Qada is making up. So qada is one for one. So if anyone miss 1 day fasting, then later on doing a day to compensate that 1 day is called qada. So like Allah says, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. So this is the about the qada, that if you are sick or are on tiring traveling and you could not fast, then in a later time, the number of days you have missed, if you fast to compensate those number of days, then you have fasted like other healthy people have fasted in their month. Your fasting is done, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you reward for it. So this replacement or compensation for one missing day by another fasting day is called qada. And many people, they take benefit of it, because Allah has given these easy options for the believers, and without it, it could have been very, very difficult. But Allah has promised about the fasting and also about all kind of worships. Allah has promised the easiness. Allah said in chapter 2, verse 185, يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. It means that Allah intends to make things easy for you. And Allah doesn't want to put any difficulties on you. So, from it, we need to remind ourselves one thing, that Allah did not prescribe fasting to make His believers suffer, but Allah has prescribed the fasting to relieve the suffering they go through from ill nature, evil nature, and the bad things that gives them fear, anxiety, doubt, etc., etc. So that is why Allah has given the flexibility. If you feel sick, then don't put pressure on you. Break the fast, because Allah knows you tried, you are trying, your sincerity. So Allah knows that you are not breaking your fast without genuine reason. Break the fast. And then when you are better now, resume your fasting. And the missing one, you can do it later. Even you can do it in short days. Allah will accept that as well. Because sometimes in a fasting month, in a summertime, we are getting into summer. So for example, in the summertime fasting is 16 hours. In winter time only 10 hours. So even to replace that fasting with qada, if one chooses to fast on shorter days, still Allah is so kind. Allah accept that compensation. So that is qada. What about the fidya? So fidya is related to, it is also a compensation, but it is not related with physical fasting, but it is related with the money or the food or the drink. So uh, how it is done, that you know uh, fidya is that you have to give certain amount of food to the poor people to compensate one missing day. But this fidya option is not for those people who fall into the category of qada, that they should fast one day for one missing day. That is because they are healthy, able, and they can do it. But fidya is for those who are not able anymore and they have terminal illness. They are not going to be better from that, or they have a chronic disease that deteriorates their health if they fast, so they cannot fast. Or some people are too old, for example, and they are not going to be younger, so they cannot do. So for those people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, and Allah has kept an option that if for one missing day of fast, if they feed a poor person, you know, as much a person eats in a whole day. So if they can give that amount of food, drink, etc., to a poor person, then that will compensate one day. So, for example, if someone has missed 20 days of fast, that means the 20 days of the amount of food he has to give to the poor people. So that's how we work out. Some very old people, they cannot fast. So for them, if the fasting was 30 days, then the scholars in locally, you don't need to ask us. You can find out from your masjid, nearest masjid. You'll find out that what is the fidya amount or sadaqat al fitr amount per day. So if that is $15, for example, then for 30 days missing, 15 times 30, yeah, that much, 300, the 300,
400
$450.
or 50,
You,
yeah.
yeah, you got to pay as fidya. Now, briefly, what is kafara? So kafara is a penalty. Kafara is a penalty for naughtiness, for disobedience. So if anyone willingly breaks the fast and indulging the food, you know, uh, openly or secretly, or anyone, has broken the law in sexuality and they have sexual intercourse, etc., etc. So if they do something willingly and then they want to, rectify it, then obviously they have to make tawbah. They have to promise to Allah, Allah, I won't do it again. This is my last time, and Allah forgive me. And with that, they have to pay penalty, and that penalty is called kafara, and this is the hard one. So for penalty in hadith, we find three options. One option is one option is freeing a slave. But freeing a slave in our society, in our time, is not available. To cross that one out, then the second option is for each missing day, you got to feed 60 poor people. So you got to have a lot of money for each day. If it costs you, for example, $10 per person, then you got to pay $600 per day. So it goes like this. And then the last option is even toughest, and that is, um, you got to fast consecutive 2 lunar months. 2 lunar months. So, the message is, I'll say in brief, the message here is that kafara is very hard option, and it gives us a message. Don't do anything that you have to make kafara.
Avoid it. Avoid it.
Totally avoid it. Too hard to
Yes.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Inshallah, that should be our target. That
Inshallah.
willingly, we will not do anything that will break fast. And our prayers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala today, that, oh Allah, grant us ability to obey your rules, and also gives us strength so that we will not do anything for which we have to give kafara. May
Inshallah.
Allah save us from defiance, may Allah save us from disobedience, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the month of Ramadan easy for us. May Allah grant us good health, and good state of Iman. May Allah grant us the strongest will to execute His order in our life, to practice His instruction, His principles with our word, with your intention, with our actions, everything, to get the maximum reward from Him. Ameen. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم.
Wa alaikum salam. Barakat.